Hello everyone, welcome back to 3.0. My name is Arham, as you know me from the hosting this podcast previously. And as we all know that in 3.0 we discuss about the recent happenings in the Web3 space and whatever going on in the market. Previously, we launched the Nomad Bridge Hack podcast, shortcast, you could say. And in that, we discussed a lot about what happened in that hack. So today I'm back with another episode with another topic, and this topic was covered previously, but it was not in much intense detail, and people would wanted to know more about it. So I'm back again with the same topic, that is DAOs and decentralized governance. For that, I have today with me Mr. Jordan. Mr. Jordan is from the Near ecosystem, and the rest he is going to introduce himself. So, hi, Mr. Jordan.
Hi, thanks for having me on. Real pleasure to be here. And yeah, so I'm Jordan, and I founded and run Astro DAO on Near Protocol, and that's a DAO launcher where we've launched over 700 DAOs, have over 200 monthly active DAOs. So it's a vibrant ecosystem of people doing everything from running their record labels to creative projects to doing fundraising, doing investment. All the verticals you can imagine are active there. And it's a project that's been going for about 2 years. It's all built on top of the Sputnik smart contracts on Near. And there's also a whole ecosystem of satellite dApps and utilities built around that core technology and the middleware that Astro uses that allow people to interact with those DAOs using bots, custom interfaces, other things like that. So that's what's up for me with DAOs. Previous to this, I, as a side project, have always run an art and tech nonprofit called Kodame. And that's how I got into the space actually was when COVID hit and we had to stop doing our in real life events with interactive installations and performances and all of that kind of stuff. We moved online to support our artists in the collective where there's over 600 artists and found great success with NFTs, and then wanted to move on from Ethereum, which a lot of the artists were complaining about as far as how splits were broken and the UX of needing these long hexadecimal names and the cost of gas and all those things. After trying out everything, really liked what I found at Near. It checked all the boxes off, and have been building there since. Previous to this, I had a long background in marketing. I was shipping material design for marketing pages at Google, and before that, was leading a innovation labs for Omnicom, which is a multimedia digital advertising conglomerate.
That's quite a background, Jordan. So, how has it been recently with working in the near protocols? As you said that it checked all the boxes.
Yeah, so for the folks that I was interfacing with who are kind of everyday users, they're artists who some of them are traditional artists and they're not even really internet people, even if they have like digital tools as part of their trade. And for these folks, one of the number one things was the ease of use. So the web wallet that Near provides and the like very easy onboarding experience was clutch for them. When you get a Near wallet, you get a human readable name off the bat. You don't have to go pay for an ENS name or something like that. And it's also something where it's very easy to gift people wallets. You can just send them a Near drop or a POAP, and then by claiming the POAP, they have a wallet, get to pick out their name, and start interacting with dApps. So the onboarding process is awesome. I also do electronic music, and I'm able to give it from the merch booth. I'm able to give people wallets, and they're inebriated at an electronic music event. And if people like that can manage to put a wallet together, then they're really set. On a more technical note, the account model on Near is very flexible. Every account is actually a smart contract, and
Hmm.
what that opens up is just insane possibilities for things like progressive onboarding and running dApps inside of your wallet. So your wallet being really a home base where you can have things plugged into it. Like there's just so much possible innovation there that isn't possible on any other chain. And then for the gas prices, everything, the gas prices are a fraction of a cent. the splits are implemented at the protocol level as part of the standard. So any standard compliant marketplace will respect those splits. Of course, you can always go OTC and screw an artist by not using a marketplace for your trades. Can't avoid that, but at least on the protocol level, it doesn't matter what marketplace you mint it at. Splits are respected across all the marketplaces. So those are kind of the big things that made Near really attractive for our audience. And when we're talking about bringing the next billion users to crypto, I think that those are the key things that we need to think about is how do everyday users encounter these, and
Yes, yes.
Near is really well set up for that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, as you mentioned AstroDAO, and you have been working in that, so that's why I uh, called you here just to discuss about a few things that we have in mind.
Hmm.
So, starting off, if I start off with the question that if we believe that DAOs are the essence of Web3 and they're owned and governed by the users, how do you see the role of DAOs in the Web3 for the future?
Yeah, so I think that the promise of users owning their own data and owning the tools that they use, owning basically the internet, is a very powerful notion. It's a bit of a romantic notion. We'll see how feasible it is in the long term. But what we are seeing and has been proven is blockchains like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other proof of stake networks where users can contribute to the network and own it. So they own the tools that they're using. Um, of course, it's a free market, so you get large players coming in and owning large parts of the network and so on. But if your network is decentralized enough, then you have been able to avoid Sybil attacks and things like that. And that's the beautiful vision. And when it comes to Near specifically, Near was actually an AI company to begin with, and
Yeah,
the founders were from like MemSQL and Google, where TensorFlow was being implemented, and they had a concern that big data, because it's owned by single players, means that those AIs are going to be skewed towards those big players' concerns. And by taking something as important as AI and making it owned by the people, we can avoid that trap of having AI not necessarily be good or evil because it's just technology, but at least it's informed by the people rather than a single party with very selfish concerns. And in doing so, they discovered to be able to pay people to contribute to a system like that, they needed blockchain. Like there was no payment system on a global scale that allowed everybody in the world to contribute to this AI project. So one
yeah,
of the interesting things about Near there is that like it's based on the idea that there's already a project that needs this to work. Like the idea of decentralizing AI and owning AI, and that's where Near came from. And that project is still like alive and well on Near, as it's called Near Crowd is one of the dApps there.
yeah.
But that kind of like sense of governance being so important is a common thread through all of the dApps on Near, and I think that that's why there's such a vibrant ecosystem of DAOs on Near, because of Ilya's passion for decentralization and figuring out governance. Like if we get this right, then we've solved democracy. I think that that's again romantic and a grand vision, but really, if we look at blockchains and we look at the idea of people owning the systems they use, why shouldn't voters own the voting system and have confidence that it's not being manipulated by outside parties? Makes a lot of sense to me.
For sure, yeah, it does make a lot of sense. So, what are the key factors that should be considered before transitioning a community to a DAO or a central organization into a DAO?
Yeah, I think that one of the first things to consider when making a change like that is that not everything needs to be a DAO. DAOs as a piece of software, they're just a tool, just like a spreadsheet is a tool. And I
Hmm.
think that they're just as powerful as spreadsheets, but you don't run your entire company out of a spreadsheet. I mean, you can, and that's also like you can run your entire company as a DAO, but off the bat, it's good to think about what are the strengths of DAOs and what part of your company do you want to decentralize? What's important for you to decentralize and make a meaningful, informed decision about how you start that process and what incremental decentralization looks like for you. Because if you take a centralized organization and you just like pull back the curtains and say, okay, now everything is decentralized, everybody gets a say, everybody gets to put forth proposals and vote on proposals, it will be madness. It will be total
Yes.
chaos and it's going to fail. But if you take a considered approach and maybe take one element of that, like putting forth proposals and allow everybody to put forth proposals, but then a working group makes a decision about what of the proposals to actually put forth to vote, then you have kind of a gradual opening up of the decentralization in a piecemeal way. And that's just talking about like the mechanical governance part of it and how you open up the mechanics of the governance. But maybe there's a single group within your organization that could use decentralization as part of its like tooling. Like if you're in a typical company, you've got your creatives, your developers, your strategy folks, your business people. Maybe one of those teams or a working group that lives across those teams tries a DAO first as a tool for organizing a single project and see how that goes. And then from there, you're going to learn a ton because it's a new tool. And you can take those learnings and iterate and either grow that experiment or try another experiment.
Good point there. A really good point there. Yes, so if you talked about decentralized governance, right? So it is you could say the first thing that clicks in mind when someone wants to start a DAO or transition into a DAO. But I feel that it is also dangerous at the same time because the inequalities and the incentive misalignments it could bring is something that is pretty dangerous from my side. If I see that attackers or people who take away the governance by the 51% attack, you could say, and buy all the tokens, the governance tokens for themselves, and then put in a decision that is very you could say highly unlikely for the DAO. So if something like that comes up, how do you see that, or would believe is an solution for this?
Yeah. So very tactically, how that's handled on AstroDAO is there's different groups that can exist within a DAO. And each one of those groups has its own permissions as far as if it can put forth proposals or if it can vote on proposals. And there's also a bunch of different kinds of proposal types. So it's a matrix of these permissions.
Okay.
And to actually create a DAO on Astro takes less than 30 seconds. If you're just clicking through it and making your DAO, it's done almost immediately. Um, but to go through the design of the DAO and to understand why you're making a DAO, what its mission is, and how you want to configure it, that can take somebody up to a month to really like think through these things and plan it out and make sure that they aren't exposing themselves to unnecessary risks. And that's the kind of thought that needs to go into DAOs. And we have a program where we have DAO instructors, where there are people who are mentors and will help people who are new to DAOs figure out all of these nuances. And usually, what we recommend is to start with a small group of seat-based voters, and that's how DAOs by default start on Near. They have a council or guardians, and those seats are filled with people who are placed there, and that's usually less than 10 people. Like it's a small group of people that are able to save a DAO if something goes wrong, basically.
Hmm.
And then from that place of having that council, it's possible to decentralize further by, making another group of NFT holders or constituents or fungible token holders and allow those people to participate either like by snapshotting and passing a proposal to put all those people in the group or allow them to do staking and be put into a group. And that's a gradual process. You would want your tokens to be adequately distributed before you say, hey, anybody with this token can vote. So a token launch, an NFT launch, any of those things, those usually happen first. And then after it's been distributed, there's a vote to say, okay, this is decentralized enough. We're going to open things up and allow this group of people to maybe only vote on things or maybe only put proposals forward. And then from there, if that's going well and successful, can open things up a bit further. And of course, you have to be cognizant of attacks and configure things in a way that is quite conservative when it comes to attacks. Um, but I don't see that as a problem because even if you make things quite liberal and have very low thresholds for things being voted through, it's very hard to get large swaths of people to vote things through. So generally, I recommend that people have quite high thresholds for actually passing proposals. And then, even if things are totally open, the large group of constituents or token holders, they can all be voting on something. And if the council or guardians see that there's, 49% of people have said yes to something, it didn't quite get to that 50% mark, but it's obvious which way things are going, then the guardians can go and finalize the execution of that proposal
Mhm.
and push it through if it's not going to make it before the deadline of the vote. And that's what you're balancing is, like, participation and democracy, like, people just don't participate. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the government, if you're talking about a mutual fund where people are weighing in about their opinions, or anything. It's just it's hard to get people's time and attention. So you're balancing that desire to get people to participate with the need to make your DAO, robust and, uh, free from attacks, and generally, I say just make it hard to attack it, and you'll figure out how to get the proposals passed if you have a council.
Okay. So, like you said, you told how AstroDAO works, and that is a very, unique thing that I've heard. It's for the first time that I heard something like that. So,
Mhm,
there are other DAOs like that come up with the idea of liquid democracy and delegation systems,
mhm.
and to execute the decision successfully, considering the conflict of interest between whales and the small token holders. So, if such a model is presented, what are your thoughts about that?
I think that voting delegation is a great thing. We were just discussing the fact that it's really hard to get people's time and attention to participate.
Hmm.
So if somebody can say, "Hey, I'm aligned with this person," and delegate their votes to them, that's a way for them to still feel like they have some stake in the whole organization,
Hmm.
but don't have to be there every single day reading every proposal, etc. So I think that delegation is a good way of allowing people to participate without demanding too much of them. And that is something that's possible on Astro, and we see it being used as, they'll stake their tokens, and then after you stake your tokens, you delegate them either to yourself or another person. Um, I I don't think that adding delegation really changes the general recommendation I have of making your thresholds high for the widest, most open group,
Hmm.
to execute things. Um, and that's that high threshold will allow the whole community, if something goes wrong and they're totally upset with the council, they can overthrow the council. They can organize and overthrow the council, even with a high threshold. And that's what you want to enable is you want the community to feel enabled, make them feel like they actually own it. And with a high threshold,
Yes,
they still get that feeling. So
for
it
sure.
it checks the marks for being able to give people actual ownership, make it hard to attack, and allow you to work efficiently. So that's still my recommendation for configuration.
That's nice. So, you as you told that in Astro DAO, it takes about 10 minutes or something to make your own DAO, and that's what your Twitter handle also says, I guess.
Mhm. Yep.
So, you might be seeing many DAOs being made inside. So, how
Yep.
do you perceive the current state that's going around, and the future state of DAOs in the near future for Web3?
Yeah, so I believe that we're very early for DAOs, and right now the tooling, even the state of the art like AstroDAO, is not as great as Web 2 tooling for people who are looking to collaborate on
Mhm.
projects today. So that's what I see as being the future is really like solving decentralized collaboration. And to do that, we need to look at tools that are designed for collaboration, project management tools, things like that, and take the good of those and make them accessible to communities, make it lightweight enough where if somebody doesn't need those tools, they don't have to have them involved in their DAO to be able to work together. They can ignore the tools and if it's just a family or a single project DAO and it's quite small, then they don't need anything too robust. But if you do start getting into larger groups and trying to organize people without a single leader telling them where to put their efforts and energy, then you need things like conflict resolution and the ability to delegate your funds or your votes towards the work that you think needs to be done. You need accountability when people commit to doing something, being able to have accountability for that. And those are the mechanisms that we're starting to see put into place. But in general, there's this gap between the kind of like immature DAO tooling and what the Web 2 or everyday user of the world finds approachable. And that's the sweet spot I see AstroDAO in right now is bridging those two things to bring the next billion users into decentralized work. The fact is that even in the Web 2 world, nobody has really solved decentralized work, decentralized collaboration. And I like to say collaboration instead of work because a lot of DAOs are playing. When you have a
Mm.
record label together, you're playing together, things like that. It's not necessarily feeling like work. And that's the beauty of this is that when people start collaborating, putting their passion um, out there and being paid for it, that's the kind of work that's being captured that wasn't able to be captured before and is now possible for it to be paid out and DAOs allow for all of that. So I think that once we bridge that gap, we'll see the next billion users and we'll have solved decentralized collaboration.
Okay. Okay, that's pretty much sums it up. But at the end, always we give our listeners a little piece of advice from the people. So, any advice that you would like to give to the newcomers in the industry or the people who are already in?
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at all this technology, it's easy to get a mindset where if you've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Always start with your actual problem and see how relevant the technology is to your problem or what elements of your problem the technology is relevant to. Don't just run around with the technology and try and make up problems for it. That's the best advice I've got.
That's a pretty great piece of advice, Jordan. So there you have it, folks. You heard Jordan and everything you needed to know about DAOs and decentralized governance. If you have any questions, any concerns, you can just put it in the comment box, or you can come up in Blockship DAO and ask away, and we'll get Jordan to answer it again in another episode or in anything like that. So thank you, Jordan, for being here. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, my pleasure. And also follow the AstroDAO Twitter, astrodao.com, and I'm Starpaws on
For
Twitter.
sure. Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
so
So
much.
everyone, the handle, the links, and everything would be in the description box, and you can just go ahead and follow Astroda and see how they're working.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jordan.